Hello, ladies and gentlemen. That day is finally here. 3.9 has gone live. And I have played it for approximately about 2 hours now, and I decided to stop, make a video, tell you guys what I thought of my gameplay so far. The things that I found, the things that I didn't like, the bugs that I encountered, and in general, from a criminal point of view, what is the gameplay like? Now, initially, in the very beginning, I found something that I thought, oh, this could be really, really good. The smuggling missions have been changed somewhat. The smuggling missions seem to have had their rewards nearly doubled, which is obviously something that's very welcome. The downside that I can see right now is that their presence, their prevalence in the Star Citizen universe is nowhere near what it was in 3.8. I had a lot of trouble finding these missions, and I even had to go to the lengths of doing missions for Rudo again, or doing a mission for Rudo to try and see if I had to do that to trigger these to unlock, because previously that was how you did it. And I figured, I don't know, maybe that old mission was an artifact and I have to come back in and kind of go like, okay, Rudo, we're friends again. Yeah, bang, bang. And now we can do missions again. No. I went to Levski, I went to Grim Hex, and the missions just like they weren't there, or they were there, but they were the really low paying ones, like the ones that used to pay about 3,000 UEC. They're now paying like 6. So it's not awful, but it's not great. I kind of wish that the prevalence was the same as in the previous patch, but the rewards had been doubled. And the reason for that being is there has been another significant change made to smuggling, which I understand. I get it. I totally get it. You know, we had kind of a considerable free period there where we were allowed to kind of get away with things for a while, and it seems that that has now come to an end. Upon arrival at Crusader, you know, for the last, I guess, month, I had gotten used to the idea that we just simply weren't getting scanned by NPC police anymore. My experience on the Persistent Universe servers throughout 3.8 was that they were there in the beginning and then they just vanished. They disappeared in one of the subsequent patches and we never saw them again. So it appears that they're back. But I was not interdicted at all during any of my gameplay, and that was over 2 hours. But you can see the halt appearing in the background up there. It took me a second to realize what this was. I went, oh yeah, that thing. I was like, well, yeah, I'm not stopping for you there, copper. And so the only thing that really kind of slowed me down was the fact that you know, Quantum was just being kind of a little bit goofy, and for me the map overall was a little bit goofy. But one of the good things that came out of this whole experience, and yes, once you quantum out, you do gain the crime stat for failure to comply, citizen. It allowed me to kind of go and explore the possibilities of resetting my crime stat, or exploring, you know, jurisdictions which previously did not seem to be working as intended, seemed to be a little bit spotty, but now seem to be kind of fully functional in 3.9. My previous experience was once you gained crime stat, you kept it in 3.8, and you know, it never seemed to disappear on me, unless of course I removed it or I died. But here it appears and disappears as you're going around and you're doing stuff. After I completed the mission, I traveled to Grim Hex, and as soon as I got there, crime stat vanished because now I was in the jurisdiction of Green Imperial. So while that did work from time to time in 3.8, you know, it seemed to be a little bit spotty, but overall it seems to be fully functional in 3.9. So once I get to Grim Hex, of course, I'm entirely safe, which is a good thing. I started to kind of think about the problems of jurisdictions and being inspected by police. And I started, in my head, I started going like, okay, how do I work around this? Because obviously it's an inconvenience. And now it appears that it's an expensive inconvenience. After a short visit to Grim Hex, where I basically armed up my character, got some armor, got a weapon, some ammo, things like that, I traveled to Levski because I wanted to see if the real long distance smuggling missions were here, because these were the ones that typically rewarded 9,000 credits apiece for completion, in the prior patch. So I was like, if these missions are still here, that could be a very crisp reward. And also, while I'm here, why not, check the fines as well? And yes, this airlock has some graphical glitches, but don't worry, it works. I figured, check the fines and see what the fine was. And if the fine isn't that bad, maybe, I could just continue smuggling, outrunning the cops and paying off the fines and still make a profit. Well, let's just say, obviously, CIG does not intend for that type of gameplay, which, gold star, I'll give it to them. It would have been degenerate. It would have been shitty. So when you check the fines for a failure to comply, you realize that, 20,000 credits, it's pricey. Also, the way your character puts their hands on the monitor, that's weird. Nobody uses a computer like that. Nobody. That's just weird, dude. So let's change that. Like, for some reason that I found that very disconcerting. I was like, why am I like fondling the monitor? Am I a weirdo? What's going on? But yeah, as you can see, mission selection was a little bit troubling. Now, I did think that possibly the crime stat had killed my my mission availability, because in the older patches, when you would do the smuggling missions, if you got above a certain crime stat, they simply weren't available to you anymore. And so here is also that mission from Rudo. So I figured, you know what? I'll go do the Rudo mission. I'll go clear my crime stat at SPK, and then if one or the other works, then I'll know that I've gotten my missions back. I wanted to see like smuggling work. And since it really is our only gameplay loop as pirates right now that actually works in terms of profit, I really wanted to explore this and see how it could be made to function. Or would it even function in 3.9? Now, the mission for Rudo was the usual, it was the standard fare. Go, please pick up these 2 boxes that contain some poor unfortunate soul and dispose of them, I care not where, and receive a reward. Now, typically, doing this mission unlocks the smuggling missions. Unfortunately, that does not seem to be the case. After completing this mission, no more missions popped up for me, and even later on when I returned to Grim Hex, the missions just weren't there. Or at least the ones that I wanted weren't there. So, I don't know. Maybe there is there's more of a run-up. Maybe there's more missions that you have to do, more things that you have to gain access to before you gain access to those missions. Or maybe it's just that they've just made them exceedingly rare. I mean, that is a possibility as well, which is not really the most welcome news. I still have to experiment with trading in substances. I'm going to tell you the truth. You may notice that if you see my balance in the video, I don't have as much credits as I had before, and that's because I kind of was experimenting with the idea in 3.8 of purchasing a large consignment of medicine for blind orphans and taking it to Grim Hex and leaving it on a ship and selling it off piecemeal as I was doing cargo missions, and that just was not working. And that was about 500,000 UEC that when the servers were pushed into 3.9 was all stored on this Cutlass Black, and now it's gone. So there goes 500,000 space bucks tossed out the window. Not to mention all those poor blind orphans who will not get their medicine now. Thanks, CIG. But yeah, so I am gonna go and pick up some, some more medicine for blind orphans, though a very small consignment, and see if it can be indeed sold and what the limitations are. I'll explore a little bit. I ain't gonna put no 500,000 into it again, but yeah, that still stings. I will definitely try and see, what the limitations are. I mean, I suppose I could turn around and read the patch notes, but I kind of hate doing that. Reading patch notes is so boring, and I don't know. I have more of a tactile, kinesthetic learning style, if you know what I mean. I like to learn by doing. So, there's that. Anyways, getting rid of the crime stat. We are in Crusader jurisdiction. The crime stat is, of course, popping up on our screen, reminding us that we are a terrible ne'er-do-well. When I was at Grim Hex, I did pick up a Walesko, which is the cheapest of the decryptor, decoder chips, whatever. And so I decided to make a trip to SPK and see if I could not rectify this this judicial oversight and restore my good name. So I returned to SPK with all the physical incompetence of a toddler. Apparently that's still a thing in the game. I don't know why, and we are going to revisit that in a second, because there are some unfortunate consequences to the lackluster physical damage in Star Citizen, or the character mobility, the tripping, the falling, and all of that. There are some pretty serious consequences that I found out about, and I will share with you in a moment. But SPK, has it changed? Not really. It's still kind of the same thing. Now, I was kind of looking forward to the possibility of there being some NPCs here, or players, and getting into some FPS action to see if the new FPS improvements were indeed improved. And of course, ultimately, nothing was here. Now, after a lengthy decryption, which once again is it's the same process we've all come to know and love, which I wish CIG would iterate on and expand upon a little bit, because I feel that there's a way to kind of open up a few extra gameplay loops to this system. Allowing players to manufacture these chips would be a nice little addition. I've made some videos about that, but it's the same thing that you've seen before. Nothing has really changed here. You just sit here, you watch the console, you click the button every time the bar fills up, if it trips the alarm. If not, you can see how it's designed to kind of, someone idealized it that it was going to add to the ebb and flow of combat, like, oh, I got to get back within a certain time to keep this thing going. But ultimately, it's just something that doesn't pan out, because while it's been idealized to work as or idealized to work a certain way, it just, in practical reality, it just doesn't. You just go in, you just reset your crime rate or your crime standing, and then you just leave, and it's either there's a bunch of people here or there's no one here. And when there's no one here, it's just a time waster. So I mean, there's ways to kind of add some gameplay elements to it, but admittedly it would involve making it so players could physically trade objects between each other, which is a piece of technology that like trading money or trading objects between one another is a piece of technology that no MMO has created before. So there's really no template on how to do this. So I can see why so many years on we still don't have something so simple, or rather so complicated. Pre-alpha guys, slow down. Let's not ask for too much. Overall, 3.9, it ran pretty well. It was it was a smoother experience. Vaulting over objects seemed to work a lot better than it did before. FPS, I would have loved to have tested it, but unfortunately SPK was out of business, and really nothing there seems to have changed either. The med rooms haven't been restored. The booze bottles, the guns, all that stuff, none of it's been returned, which admittedly would give people more reasons to visit the place, but who would want people playing the game? So let's remove it, right? But you may notice that I'm kind of dragging things on here, because I'm going to get to the one thing about 3.9 that I just went, really? How is this still a thing? And you may have noticed when I first arrived at SPK, we had our usual moment where you transition from gravity or no gravity to gravity, and then you trip and you fall and you face plant because you're a toddler and you have no capability to control your body. Unfortunately, this seems to be more of a thing in 3.9 than it was in 3.8. Now you may notice that I just took some injury there, and now the little, I guess, blood icon, you can't really tell, it looks like water because it's blue instead of red in the lower left hand side of the screen. You're going to notice that is now going down. So I'm guessing what is happening is I'm bleeding my own blood. So you'd think, well, how do you fix bleeding? Or are you bleeding? Am I losing water or am I losing blood? I don't know. Just some little critiques, some helpful hints for the people designing the UI. How do I know what's going on and what that means? Because it's blue. Blood is red. Water is blue. What is going on here? How do I fix it? I don't know. Well, let's experiment with the only piece of medical gameplay that we currently have. Now, the trusty MediPen is, it's the one-stop cure-all for every medical problem you can possibly have, except for bleeding. Now, when you trip and fall, as you do all the time in the Star Citizen universe, because this is something that has never been fixed, you run the risk of somehow cutting yourself inside of your spacesuit from falling down. Worse yet, you have no way to fix it. So even when you try to put another MediPen on your person and use it, seemingly after I used the first MediPen, I wasn't able to use subsequent MediPens, even though the first MediPen never fixed it, so there's no real indication that the second one will do it, or the third, or the fourth, or the fifth, or the 10th, or the 100th. So basically, if you fall down and you start to bleed, as you can see in the lower left-hand corner of the screen, or you're just leaking your water, once again, don't know, you basically just exsanguinate very slowly and die. I shit you not. I would love if this was just a basic survival game, so I could just run up to just some brush in the woods, grab some fiber, make it into a primitive bandage and wrap it around myself and just stop the bleeding. If only there was a place anywhere in this universe where I could get a piece of fabric or, a bandage, anything that could stop me from slowly bleeding to death. Because while we have the consequences, we don't have the counterplay. So here I am, slowly bleeding to death, and the only medical gameplay that I have access to does not fix it. Think about that. I mean, really? What the actual? I mean, come on. This was just the one thing that I just went, so what am I going to do? Do I just have to keep playing the game until I slowly exsanguinate and die? Or do I just kill myself to clear the bleed? I guess I just kill myself to clear the bleed, right? Great. Could someone please either remove this until you have full medical gameplay in the game, or just give us an effing bandage, please, that stops bleeding? Just, one thing that does another thing that we can purchase in a shop and use on our character to stop the bleeding, rather than having a game full of characters who are just basically pulling the trigger on themselves because they've got a paper cut. Could we do that, please? Now, I'm occasionally told that I'm snarky and I'm mean about some of the things in Star Citizen in my video, so I'm going to end on a positive note. Look at this. I am now landed at this landing site. And look what I can do. It works. They fixed it. It works. You can now repair, rearm, and refuel while landed at the landing site. You no longer have to play that silly hover game where you had to kind of get into the sweet spot in order for this to work. It functions now. Of course, there's this weird effect that I seem to keep getting where sometimes when I'm sitting at my command console, my head just kind of like lags off to one side and I seemingly can't control it until I get out of the chair. Weird moment, but overall, yeah, they got repair and rearm and refuel working. It's great. It's fantastic. Good job, guys. Now, how about a friggin' bandage, please?
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.